And joining me now is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Jake, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I want to start with Hamas releasing that video of American hostage Idan Alexander, who has been held by Hamas now for more than 400 days, Jake. Is the United States any closer to bringing the hostages home or striking a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas?
Well, Kristen, that video was a cruel reminder of Hamas's brutality and of the fact that they are holding so many hostages from so many countries, including American citizens, including Americans like Idan. And we are doing everything we can to get those hostages home safely to their families. We were in touch with Idan's family yesterday. I'll be speaking with all of the American hostage families this week. President Biden pledged, coming off of the announcement of the Lebanon ceasefire, that we would be working round the clock to produce a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. We are working to do that. I can't make you any predictions about the shape of that deal or when it will come, but I can tell you that we are working actively to try to make it happen. We are engaged deeply with the key players in the region, and there is activity even today. There will be further conversations and consultations, and our hope is that we can generate a ceasefire and hostage deal, but we're not there yet.
Well, Jake, let's talk about what you just mentioned, the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah. Both sides have already been accusing each other of violating the terms of the agreement. The last time the Lebanese army was tasked with enforcing a ceasefire in 2006, it failed. Jake, why are you confident that it can succeed this time?
Well, first, this is a huge step forward in the Middle East, a ceasefire across the border between Israel and Lebanon, the end to more than a year of very significant violence on both sides of that border, the opportunity for people to ultimately be able to return to their homes in Israel and in Lebanon. So this is a good thing, and we need to protect it and ensure that it is fully implemented. And what makes this time different is the United States, France, and other allies are going to work together with the Lebanese armed forces through a mechanism to ensure that the ceasefire is implemented effectively. Now, that's not going to involve U.S. forces deployed on the ground in southern Lebanon, but it will mean that we will put our full backing behind this. And also, as the agreement itself states, Kristen, both parties, including Israel, have the right, consistent with international law, to take action in self-defense if they're facing imminent threats. We have seen some of that. Our goal is to get through these first few days, critical days of a ceasefire when it's most fragile, have it take full hold, and then ultimately build on it so that it becomes the permanent ceasefire it's intended to be.
Well, let me ask you about something that the incoming National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, had to say. He credited President-elect Trump with this ceasefire, Jake, saying, quote, "Everyone is coming to the table because of President Trump." Jake, how do you respond to that?
Well, first, I would just say that we've had good consultations with the incoming team. We've been transparent with them. We are committed to ensuring a smooth transition. Second, I'm glad to see the incoming team is welcoming the ceasefire. And finally, Kristen, I would just say that you know you've done a good thing when other people take credit for it. We're proud of the work we've done on bringing this ceasefire about. And it came about because of the relentless diplomacy directed by the current president of the United States, Joe Biden.
Do you think that there's any truth to what Mike Waltz said?
What I believe is that we have been working actively on the terms and parameters of this deal, and it ultimately came about for a pretty simple reason, which is that Israel had successfully degraded and weakened Hezbollah to a point where its major objectives had been achieved. Okay. That was what drove the ceasefire, along with tireless work and effective diplomacy, again, led by the president, driven by the Secretary of State, by our envoy, Amos Hochstein. Yeah. And you can now see the fruits of that play out in the existence of this ceasefire. But we will stay in close touch with the Trump team day in, day out for the next 50 days because it's critical that we have a smooth handover of power.
Let's talk about what's happening in Syria. Rebels have seized control of most of the second largest city of Aleppo. What is your sense of what's happening on the ground? And do you think that Bashar al-Assad could fall?
Well, keep in mind that for many years, the Syrian government has been engaged in this civil war backed by three main players: Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah. All three of those players have been distracted and weakened by conflicts elsewhere. So it's no surprise that you see actors in Syria, including the rebels, try to take advantage of that. And that's exactly what they've done over the last several days. Now, this rebel offensive is led by a group that the United States has designated as a terrorist entity. So we have concerns, obviously, about that group. And we are consulting closely with players across the region to try to determine the best way forward, because what we would like to see is the full implementation of UN Security Council resolutions that could bring a measure of peace and stability to Syria and protection to civilians, including religious minorities. As far as the fate of Bashar al-Assad, people have been predicting that for a long time. I'm not going to make any predictions here. All I'm going to say is that we will stay deeply engaged in the days ahead.
Jake, let me ask you about the breaking news overnight. President-elect Trump announcing he wants to nominate Kash Patel for FBI director. The FBI obviously plays a major role in counterterrorism operations. What do you make of this pick?
Look, I'm not going to speak about the president-elect's nominees. The only thing that I can point out, Kristen, is that we, the Biden administration, adhered to the longstanding norm that FBI directors serve out their full terms, because the FBI director is a unique player in the American government system. They're appointed for 10-year terms, not terms just for the duration of a given president. The current FBI director, Chris Wray, was actually appointed by Donald Trump. Joe Biden didn't fire him. He relied upon him to execute his responsibilities as the director of the FBI and allowed him to serve out the fullness of his term over the course of the Biden administration. So that's how we approach things, and we would like to ensure that the FBI remains an independent institution insulated from politics.
All right. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.